Hello and welcome to series 3 from a series of 6 videos on Coding Academy. Today's focus is going to be on dictionaries or hash tables, and we're going to look at the Bebras Challenge 2025 Pruning Flowers. Let's begin with dictionaries. What is a dictionary? Have a look at the example here in the bottom of the slide. And what we can see is that I have literally, it's as if I've just opened the dictionary book and I'm looking up the word beauty. And this is what it says it is. So you can see I have an element here. This is the first element separated by quotes. And then I have this long phrase here, which is also separated by quotes. And here's another example, and here's another example. These are examples of dictionaries within Python coding. That is, we have the main word, and then we have the meaning of that word. The actual usage of dictionaries is very similar to how it's seen in normal books and dictionaries. So let's look at it in terms of Python. Here we have some Python coding, and I'm setting a list here of 3 words. Same 3 words from the previous page: beauty, joy, computing. And then I'm giving the definitions of them. You can see where they begin with the quotes, and you can see where they end with the quotes and the comma. That's the first one. Here's the second one, and here is the third one. So you can see that these are matching. The first list, beauty, is matching with the first one. The second one is matching with the second one, and so on. And here in the end, we'll look at this a little bit later, but literally this is just printing the meaning of the first one, which is a combination of qualities. We'll look at what that means a little bit later. So far, everything looks good. I've shown you what it looks like in a normal dictionary. I've then shown you what a dictionary looks like in Python, but what potential problem can you think of? Stop the video and think about that. Problem 1, association. Imagine if I change the placement of one of those words in the word list. Then you must also modify its corresponding placement. So for example, if we go back here, you can see that beauty matches this one. The second one, joy, matches this one. And the third one matches this one. So if I change 3 to 2 or 2 to 3, then it's going to be incorrect. If I change 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, it's going to be incorrect. And this is the problem with doing a dictionary like this with lists. So what we want to do is to try to find a better solution for this. Additionally, we also have a problem with performance. Imagine that I have millions and millions of words. Then doing a search for these words will be very time consuming, because I would have to search for every single one. So how can we improve this design? How can we make it quicker, more accurate to retrieve that data? Because at the end of the day, the reason we have these dictionaries is to retrieve the data and get some more information. Now, one possible way that is used is using this method I'm going to describe now. It's a little bit complicated, so try to follow it. And I will go through an example with Python to show you. So what they do is they take the first letter of each word, they subtract it from the character A, and thus this gives you a numerical value. And you may be thinking, how is that possible? How are we going to get a numerical value from the first letter of each word and the character A? Well, this is where something called ASCII comes into it. So let's have a look what ASCII is, and then we're going to come back and see how this works. For those of you that don't know what ASCII is, you can see over here in the table. It's been around for many years now, about 65 years to be precise. And basically what it is, it's where everything is represented with a particular number. So if you just pay attention over here where my pen is, let's just have a look at the alphabet. And it obviously goes all the way down here to Z. and it stops here. Just do some dotted lines. Notice that it's actually different from this alphabet, which is in capital letters. They have different representation. So essentially what it is, A, small a, represents 97. Big A represents 65. And this is a very important piece of information because this is used in quite a few ciphers as well, in cipher coding. So in other words, think of ASCII as a number representation for symbols and letters. That's what it is. Let's go into a little bit more detail with how this works. Now, when we use a hash function, okay, this is a function that converts a given numeric or alphanumeric key into an integer value. So this is doing the job that we just talked about before. Now, the integer value is then used as the index for our hash table. In simple terms, a hash function maps a significant number or string to a small integer, which is then used in the index of that function. So when I say an index, imagine we have a dictionary and we have an index value. This 0 is the index value. So these values can be found and represented using a hash function from letters of the words. Let's have a look what that actually means in real life. So let's imagine that I have my words here. Okay, apple, banana, cherry, date. And you can see that they start with A, B, C, and D. And then I have my list here. My list is item A, item B, and so on. This is where the magic happens here. This is where we get the index being the index that represents the data in our dictionary. And you can see the output down here as well. So basically, if you run these 5 lines of code here, they will map out apple to item A, banana to item B, and so on and so on. And how it does that is using a function called ORD, O-R-D. And what that does, very simply, is it grabs the numerical ASCII value of the letter. So word 0 would be grabbing apple. And what it's going to do is it's going to grab that first letter. And if we go back to our table over here, it's going to give us 97. If it's a small letter, it's going to give us 65 if it's a big letter. So let's have a look at this in a table form. So over here, we start with our word. We grab the first letter of that word, which you can clearly see as being A, B, C, D. We represent that in ASCII form, which is 97, 98, 99, 100. We then do a simple calculation, 97 minus 97, which is the original value of A, and therefore 0 is our starting index value for this dictionary. And you can see that value then gets put into here. And so the first value in my list, which is apple, is now representative of item A. Number 1 is the second one, because everything starts from 0 in coding, goes to B, and number 2 goes to C, and so on, and so on. So this is a little bit of the technique of how they map the values when you have words and convert them into numbers. Let's go into a little bit more detail now into this dictionary. How does it work? Why do we call it HashTable? What's the difference here? Okay, in a Python dictionary, what we basically have is something called key value pairs. Now, why is it called key value pairs? It's called key value pairs because this is the value and this is the key to that value. So therefore, if you want to see the value of name, then you would search for the name and it would give you the content, which is Superman. So if you have any knowledge about databases, it's a little bit like having a primary key here of a database. where name represents Superman, address UK, phone is 122.333. We're going to look at a little bit later on how we're going to put this information, how do we create these, how do we delete them, how do we add, update, and so on. First of all, we need to create the dictionary. Now, there are three basic ways to create a dictionary. Each one has their own little pros and cons that you should consider when doing this. Let's look at number one. So we call this is the classic Python dictionary. We give it a name. We can give that name anything we want. We use curly braces open, curly braces closes. And inside there, note we have a comma on each line except the last one. We don't need that, of course. And therefore, I have three entries in my database, in my Python dictionary, let's call it. And that is one, which is name, that's the key. The value is Alice. Two, key is age, 25. And three is city, which is New York. In order to print it, I just simply give a print command and the name of my dictionary. Method two. Method two is where we use a list pair. So here I'm making a list, and you can see that I'm giving pairs inside, separated with a comma, inside the list. And there's my third one. So this is essentially exactly the same as this, but using list. And you can print them out as well in the same way. We use the function dict, which is short for dictionary, to make the pairs, to combine these together as a key value pair. Method three, this is where we use standard lists and then we combine them into dictionary. So in this case, the difference between this one is we only have one list, and this one we have two lists. Obviously, we can call them anything we want, but it makes sense to call them keys and values because that's what they are. And then we use a nice little function here called dictionary. Now, zip has got nothing to do with WinZip or 7-zip of actually compressing the data. It simply takes the elements from each iterable of the index and it pairs them together. So it just literally combines these two, these two, these two into a dictionary, which is going to be called my dict. So therefore, you can then print it out and see the dictionary again. So three ways to do it. To be honest, this one is pretty much the most common one, but the other ones are also available for you. Okay, now we know how to make a dictionary in three different ways. Let's look at how we are going to perform actions on that dictionary. For example, accessing the dictionary. How do I access it? Well, because this is a dictionary, we need to use square brackets. You can see them here. And if I want to print, for example, the value of my first element, in this case, I'm just going to do my dict, square brackets, name. Name is the key, and so therefore it's going to print for me the value Alice. And there it is. Updating the dictionary. Updating the dictionary is also super easy. All I need to do is give it the name of the dictionary, of course, because we could have many of them. I grab square brackets again with age, and then I change it to whatever value I want, in this case 30, print it out again, and I now get 30 instead of 25. So very quickly, you could make a for loop here, run around, and change all the values to whatever you want. Adding values. As you can see, I have three values in my dictionary at the moment. Let's add another one. So my dict gender, I make a new gender, and I'm making it equal to female. I print out my dictionary. I now have another entry, number 4, over here, which matches my other 3 over here. Deleting values. Let's say, for example, I don't want females anymore and I want to delete it. All I need to do is use the keyword delete from my dictionary, gender. I don't need anything else after it because all I'm doing is deleting the key, Once you delete the key, bye-bye to the value as well. And therefore, I'm back to my original 3 pieces of information. And female has been deleted. Show values from a dictionary. How do we show all the values? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing this. As you saw from previous examples, then all you have to do is just print the actual dictionary, and that will show you the values. But another nice way of looking at the keys is to actually use a function called keys. And what this does, this will show all the actual key values only. So in this particular dictionary here, what I have, it's going to show me apple, banana, cherry, without showing me the values of those keys. Now, this is very important. As an example, I was writing a program the other day, and it was actually a phone application that I was creating, and I wanted to see if I had login information in my database, in my dictionary. So I had to search through the keys to see if I had login stored. And that told me that the program had run and saved the login details. And that would be a common example of where you would use this, but there are many more as well. So to show them, all you do is, let's take our original database, the original dictionary that we had before. Let's just put in dict keys, and now I can see all the 4 names of the keys, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so we've now learned what a dictionary is, how it all works, how you can access it. Let's go through some activities. If you wish to do these activities yourself, then I suggest you pause the video right now, because I'm going to show you the solutions to these. So first activity is create a dictionary that stores the following fruits and prices. Now, straight away in your mind, you should be thinking, what's the key? Probably the fruits. Prices is going to be the value. So I have key value pair straight away. So let's print out the whole dictionary. I initialize it first, just like I did in the previous one. Don't forget the commas after each one, except the last one. And then give me a print for the prices. And that's it. You've just created your own dictionary with those 4 fruits. Accessing the values, we already know how to do that now because we saw it before. All we need to do is use the square brackets, give the name of whatever we want to see, in this case, bananas, and that will show us the price of bananas, which is 0.25. Activity 2. If you wish to do this yourself, pause the video right now. We want to iterate through a dictionary. So what we want to do here is print all fruit names and their respective prices like this. So we're going to print fruit name first and then price. In other words, print the key and then print the value. To do that, we're going to use a for loop, and we're going to print the items of that list. And that list would be the one that we created over here. And here we're going to print out the fruit. We have the $ for the price. And this is simply using the format command in a print. And these are called placeholders. Placeholders are where we can put inside there the actual variable. It makes it a lot cleaner and neater when we do print commands. And the output would look exactly like that, which is what we were requested to do in the exercise. Next activity. Number 3, modifying a dictionary. There's a few things to do here. This one's a bit more complicated. Pause the video if you want to do it yourself. Update the price of apples to 55. What was the original price? Apples were 50. So they've increased a little bit. So increase to 55. Add a new fruit. We have the key there. We have the value. And then remove cherries from the dictionary. So we need 3 pieces of code to do this. Let's grab the actual original list again. We are going to update the price. So we use the square brackets we talked about before. We're going to add a new fruit, which just means we need the name of the dictionary, give it a new name, which is the key, and then give it a value, which is the price. We don't want cherries anymore. Maybe they're out of season. Maybe we don't have any left. Let's delete the fruit prices of cherries. Nothing else required, no equal sign, no value needed, just the name. Once you delete the name, that is the key, then everything gets deleted with it. And finally, print out the updated dictionary. Nice, that's a really nice exercise to get a feel for dictionaries. Now, could we have 2 or more apples in the dictionary? Maybe as we've been going through these slides, you've thought to yourself, okay, maybe I've got different types of apples and I want to have 2 different apples in there. So let's say I have 1 apple here and I have another apple here for 0.6. Can I do that? Why would I want to do that? Well, the answer is no, because the idea of a dictionary, one of the main concepts of a dictionary and why it's used, is because we want it to be unique. Every key is unique. You can be guaranteed that if you have a dictionary, every value in that dictionary is different, which pretty much is the same as a real book dictionary, isn't it? Have you ever opened a dictionary and you have 2 of the same entries? This is not going to happen. And it's the same thing here. And we're going to use that very shortly in a program for your homework where you're going to use that concept to perform a task. Now, if you do try to put 2 apples, like the example here, what happens is as the program runs and starts going through each line of code, this apple will be overwritten by the latest apple that you give. So you're going to have a problem. There's no point entering this apple here because it's not going to last. Once you put another one in, it gets deleted because you can't have the same name. Of course, you could change this and say apples 1, apples 2, something like that, or green apples and red apples, but you can't have the same key name. Now, 2 options. If you want to do this, if you have a need to have, let's say, 2 values for apples, then one way of doing it would be for this, where we use a list as the value pair. So I have 0.5, 0.55. And the second one is I actually have a dictionary inside another dictionary. How crazy is that? But it's possible, it's used, and it's up to you if you need to do that or if you have to do that. But do remember that the whole idea of a dictionary is that each element is unique. Okay, exercise 4. Stop the video if you want to try this on your own. What is the output of this particular code? So I'm starting with the dictionary here. I'm making a dictionary here. I have A as being ABC. I have C being CBA. And then list 1 is I convert the dictionary into a list and then I print the list. What do you think that's going to produce? Well, as you would expect, it produces A and C, which can be seen as being the key pairs of both words. Okay, quite often when working with dictionaries, we want to try to find out if something is in the dictionary, just like we're trying to look up a word, trying to find the meaning of it. In order to do that, we use the keyword in. So let's say I have a dictionary here, my dict, and here I have key 1, key 2, and so on. All I need to do is give an if statement and say, if key 1 in my dictionary, print key 1 is in my dictionary, because this is a normal if statement, and it's going to be true if it's here. If you want to check if a word is not in your dictionary, simply give me a not in front of in. And that will tell you if it's not in the dictionary. So now you have the power of deleting, adding, updating, making, finding, searching, anything you want in dictionaries. Two important things to think about particularly for coding and in competitions, is that the whole idea of dictionaries is to create meaningful relationships. And that is to make a key and give a value for that key. This has a meaningful relationship with that key. It could be students in a classroom, it could be fruits in a shop, it could be anything you want it to be. And the most important part, really, which is why these are used, is you don't have any duplicate entries. They are inherently deleted from the database if you have any ones, or overwritten, might be a better way of explaining this. Like we saw before with the apples, when you put a second key in with the same name, then it overwrites the previous one. So these are the main two concepts of why we need to understand this, particularly for coding competitions. Okay, coming to the end now, let's have a look at a homework task. Now, your homework task is, let's have a quick read of this, and then please try to do this on your own at home. In a university registration system, student IDs are supposed to be unique, and they would be used as, let's say, a primary key if you use a database. Due to a potential system error, some IDs might have been registered more than once. Your task is to find or detect any such duplicates. So you have some requirements here. I suggest you try to do this on your own. Spend a little time looking at these slides again in this video, going through how do you manipulate dictionaries, for example, deleting, searching, finding, and so on and so on. And have fun with your homework. For now, let's finish off this video with a coding challenge. And this is going to be directly from Bebras Pathfinders. And this one is called Pruning Flowers. So in this one, we're going to be jumping over to the code again to try to write a program using a dictionary to perform this action. Let's have a look at the task. Write a program that takes as an input a string of flower names and outputs a new string with any duplicate names removed. Oh, that sounds familiar. If you have been attentive in this class, in this video, you will now understand that if we make a dictionary of the words that you enter, then this will automatically delete any duplicate names, and we should then have our original list of string flower names, which have no duplicates in them. Now, as usual in these coding challenges, they always want them to be separated by a space. It's either a space or a comma. In this case, it's a space, and each name will be a single word. We don't want to confuse the program with a two-word flower. Okay, output format. All you need to do literally is to print out the input string of flower names with the duplicates removed. So we have an example here. I use daisy, ivy, rose, ivy, tulip. So that's unique, that's unique, that's unique, but ivy's not. So what we want to do is delete one of these ivies. And a way of doing that is to simply make a dictionary of these words. Okay, so that's the task. Let's jump over to our Bebras. Here we can see this is the actual challenge, pruning flowers, and it's exactly like I've just explained it. Okay, let's go over to our platform that our company created. And this is where we have the blocks on the left and the code on the right. Of course, you can go either way you want. You can bring in some of these blocks if you want. I'm just going to start over here with the code. So the first thing we want to do is make a variable. Let's make a variable, and it's going to be an input. Now, quite often in these coding challenges, they just leave this input like this, but In this case, I'm going to try to make it a little bit more easy to understand and follow. Enter flowers separated by a space. Let's do that. Okay, that looks good. I've got our block on the left. Nice. So that takes care of my first line of code. I'm going to have to make one change to that though in a minute. See if you can detect what change I need to make to that while I make my dictionary. Dictionary. And that's going to be 2 braces. Straight away, it makes me an empty dictionary. Now I'm going to go with a for loop. And let's give it a name. I'm going to call it flower. Kind of makes sense. In flowers. Don't forget the semicolon. Now I'm going to activate my dictionary. So let's grab this dictionary. And this is going to be called flower because this is the index of what I'm using over here. Remember, if you're not sure what I'm doing here or I haven't seen this before, a for loop loops around the list or the dictionary that you have and simply grab this. The flower here is the index, which grabs each one of the entries in flowers and it's going to put it here. So each one of these is going to be true. And then all I want to do is to print it out. So let's call it element this time. In my dictionary, I'll copy it from here. And let's just print element out. Now we can print it on a different line as well. If you haven't seen this before, don't worry about it. It just gives us a space there. Okay, now there's something missing. Anyone, any idea what's missing here? If you remember from previous codes we've been writing, we have to split that input because we put spaces in there. So there's more than one entry. So therefore we need the split command. Okay, so I take my input. I don't need to cast this with an int because I want it to be a string. I declare a dictionary. I then run around that dictionary, putting whatever flowers inside it, and then I print the dictionary out. Let's see if this works. So hopefully it's going to ask me to put some flowers in. There it is. Let's go with the same as what we have in the example here. Let's just grab them, put them over here. So we can see we have daisy, ivy, rose, ivy, tulip. So what this should do is should delete one of the ivies. And it has done. Yeah, we got it. Nice. And that's it. That's it. So this is a really, really simple program, literally like 10 to 12 blocks needed for that. 6 lines of code only, and we can now create our own dictionary and delete any duplicate. So now we can put this into the actual Bebras and see if it passes the test. Let's take it right over here into pruning flowers. And of course, like all the other times, we need to get rid of the quotes. And let's submit the code. Full score. That looks good. Everything passed. And that is another successful code. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.